Welcome everyone to a brand new premiere episode of the Talking the Last of Us. I am your host Jen. I am joined tonight by Josh, Kinte, and Tori. I'm going to introduce them a little bit further in. Let me give you a quick introduction to what we're going to do and say I am so excited about this. I've been waiting so long to do this, and I really hope that this is going to be not just fun for us, but fun for you, the viewer. Okay, so let's give a quick introduction to what we're going to do here. Talking The Last of Us is going to go through episodically each of the Last of Us story titles, and we'll sort of roll some things together here right at this very second. And that way we can kind of get through some stuff and hopefully catch up real quick so that we can be on time and do week by week episodes. Um, the show itself is The Last of Us. It's based off of the video game from Naughty Dog. If you haven't played the game, just know that there might be a little bit of spoiler material going on. So if you aren't interested in hearing that, this might not be the podcast for you until after you have kind of seen a little bit more of the show or decided that you want to play whatever. However you decide to do it, there probably are going to be some spoilers. Um one quick also sort of housekeeping piece of business. I do want to make sure that everybody knows that so far from where we are right now, we're just a bit behind in terms of the episode count. We have a new episode coming up very soon. As soon as we're all caught up, then we'll get onto a regular schedule. Okay, so let's first talk real quick about what is happening. There's an apocalypse. It's kind of different than what we're used to. And I'm really excited about how this whole thing transpires. This is one of those games that has a really loyal fan base for really good reasons. And I think one of them is the way that they introduce the apocalypse and what they are sort of trying to say about what might happen. It's a really neat idea. Um, and actually, you know what? I think I'm going to introduce my guests and bring you guys in so that we can talk real quick about how we feel about some things, and then we'll get into the history of the game itself. So, without further ado, first I'm going to introduce Josh. Josh, how are you tonight?
I am amazing,
Awesome.
as per usual.
Are you excited about talking about The Last of Us?
Absolutely, it's just off the top of my head. I'll just say it's one of the best new shows we've had in quite a while.
And big question, have you played the game or not?
I have played both games
Okay. So,
and the DLC.
Josh, okay. So Josh has the knowledge of a game player to bring to the table. I'll ask you another question afterwards. Let me get over
Okay.
to Kinte. Kinte, how are you tonight? And give us your take. Are you a game player, or are you just watching the episodes and along for the ride?
I'm watching the episodes along for the ride, but what I'll do is I will watch the progression of the game up until it's caught up. So I have watched what happened in the game just to see how it differs or compares to the TV show.
So Kinte is a very well informed viewer of The Last of Us, and that's pretty awesome, actually. I know a lot of people who are in your position, Kinte, who are basically checking up to see whether or not the show is sort of running along the same lines as the game. And I find that really fascinating. This is the first time I've ever had a or seen a group of fans who are so invested in the story that they actually go back and like check the wikis and look to see, is did somebody play this? Is there a Twitch for it? It's kind of neat. I really love that interactivity. It's great. And Tori, how are you tonight? And tell us the same thing. Have you played the games, or are you just along for the ride?
Tori's on mute.
Tori's on mute,
I am an uninformed viewer. I
uninformed. Okay.
I when I was watching it, just life got in the way, and I didn't pay that much attention whenever I should have been. So I missed a lot of parts. But I got the gist of it. You know what I mean? Like I'm with the plot and everything. I can talk about it. I just don't know where it's going, and I never play the video game.
Well, probably none of us really know exactly where this is going, but I'm going to give you a little bit of info about episode one, episode two, and sort of some direction that I know that the show is going in. We do know that the series is taking place over the course of the first game. That is going to be all of season one. So if you thought that season one was going to be protracted, I'm sorry, into two different seasons, no, it's not. It absolutely is going to be just this one season. And then it's been renewed. So we're all assuming that season two will cover the next game. I'm not really sure how to feel about that. They are moving really fast, but wow, they've got a lot of ground to cover between now and the end of the series. And I feel like I wish they would have slowed down a little bit. I don't know. How did you guys feel about that? Or how do you feel about that? Do you think that the episode one, episode two, and I know we're going to get into some three stuff in a little bit, but do you feel like we're moving at a fast pace or at a slow pace? Or what are you guys feeling about that?
No, I
Just
think the
feel free
pace
to chime
is. I think the pace is great. I really enjoyed what I've seen so far, and I think they're doing an excellent job. Conveying it.
in. What
Since I
about
have
you,
never,
Josh?
oh sorry,
Well, it from coming from someone that's played the games, it does seem kind of quick,
Yeah.
but only because you're taking out all of the looting aspects, the crafting aspects, and the incidental fights that
Right.
don't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. So you're just moving from basically plot point to plot point, and translating game to series. It's you really get to understand how much of that's just kind of in there for gameplay purposes rather
Yeah.
than the storytelling. So
You
we're
know,
getting the best of the storytelling.
you know what it is? Is Josh just wants to see that scene where Bill and Joel push the truck while Ellie's driving it.
Yeah, there's some kind of cool stuff that definitely didn't get covered, but scene by scene, I'm not I mean, I think that they're doing a good job. I just wish that it would take longer, and I think part of that is just because I just love this story so much that, even if they wanted to add new pieces of material, I would still be okay with that. I still feel like, hey, if you want to invent some things that happen over here or over here, yeah, okay. And it's just my love affair with the story, but okay. Okay, so I want to talk first about just, and we're going to try to make some of this stuff really brief, but I want to talk first about what is a cordyceps. And so there's a difference between cordyceps in the game and cordyceps in on the show. And I would just want to talk real briefly about that because it does kind of matter. Um and there's an idea here that I think some people were not too excited about. They were upset because they thought it was going to change the core monsters. So give me some. Actually, Josh, why don't you? Can you tell me what you think the main differences are between the cordyceps that are in the game and then the cordyceps that are in the show?
The main differences.
Well, okay. I mean, the lore that's behind it, right, is there's no spores in the show. It is. This is the whole reason that we have the introduction with the characters that are talking on the talk show. John Hanna. Big shout out to John Hanna. Um, and they talk about the fungal sort of implication of everything, but they don't talk about the spores, and that's primarily how everything is spread in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we even
Airborne.
have,
Yeah.
yeah, everything is airborne, and here that's not really what's going on. In fact, I mean, the whole backstory with with the flower, with the idea that it was an outbreak that happened along a slightly different line. I don't feel like it actually changed the meaning of the story, but that's what I wanted to kind of get from you.
Okay. Well, just taking away the spore aspect. Again, I think it makes I think it's a smoother transition for television to not have to spend several minutes with your stars in masks, walking through uh, dank and dark areas of the world, just to have them just to build that sort of sense of urgency. Even though I guess technically Ellie doesn't need the mask, so
Right.
you get to see one person's face, and I think we've already had enough of a show where a certain someone keeps his face covered the whole time. Um, don't need more of that. He's a handsome man. Anyway,
How pissed would he be if like this is the second straight show where he has to cover his face the whole time?
develop a
Man, poor Pedro.
complex. Nobody wants to see my face.
And that's such a lie because of course everybody wants to see his face. Okay, but we'll save that for another conversation. Let's quickly jump into so basically the cordyceps. This is a big deal, okay? Because there are a number of different types of cordyceps that we see in the game, and so far, I don't know. I'm not ignoring the comments. I just it's hard for me to focus on them and try to get through this material really fast. So I'll try to address them as we kind of go if I can. But I just want you to know you're being heard. Um, One of the biggest, I think, differences here is that from the beginning we get the idea that that the cordyceps themselves, because there are so many different types in the game, fans were a little bit nervous that they weren't going to do justice to them. And I'm not sure that that's actually true. I think that there's still we haven't seen a lot of the different types, but I have heard that there are, and that they have kind of made some adjustments as to what they do or how it works. But I feel like that fear might be slightly unfounded. So I just wanted to address that real quick because the cordyceps themselves are such a major point of contention with fans that it felt like it needed a little bit of something. Let's just really quick run through the Joel and Sarah and Tommy beginning. I just want to touch on why this is obviously so important, and I'd love to get your take, Kinte, on how you felt that relationship was presented. Do you feel like it was? I mean, obviously, we understand that Joel loved Sarah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But do you think that they did a good enough of a job expressing why it is that this relationship clearly is setting up the relationship between Joel and Ellie? How do you feel that they did with that beginning part of the of episode 1?
Well, I have to say this. As someone who didn't know about the game, I went in cold, so I didn't know what was going to happen.
Mm,
Um, I First of all, they make you fall in love with his daughter, right? Because she is so sweet,
she is.
and the actress that plays her does a fantastic job. And you totally see her as someone that's going to be on the show going forward. And they made the beginning part mostly about her. So, and it's a beautiful job because it really gets you invested in her and her safety. So they do kind of a Game of Thrones thing, where um and where you don't think that Ned Stark is going to get beheaded, and then you're like, because you didn't read the book right yet, and you're like, oh, well, I know I just spoiled dang it, I just spoiled Game of Thrones, sorry. But you're sitting there like, oh yeah, she's going to be fine. They're not going to kill a kid. And then wow, the girl dies and you're like, oh my god. So I think they did a great job of establishing not only Joel and her relationship, and I loved how they watched what was it, a ninja movie, and I just love the
Right.
closeness. And then I think they did a good job of establishing Tommy too, to a certain degree. And it is so, when I went back and watched it in the video game, it is so almost beat beat by beat similar. And the
Yeah.
part that they added to it needed it, and I thought it was just excellent. I thought they did a fantastic job. It pulls you right in, and you hurt for the daughter. And I'll be honest with you, when it went to black, I wasn't quite sure she was dead. I thought
Oh,
maybe, yeah. I mean, at first, I was kind of like, are they going to come back and say that she didn't die? And then the time jump, and then when maybe I was hoping that she wasn't dead, and then when you realize, oh no, 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 she's gone. Like, oh wow. And then I thought they did a great job of setting you up for the relationship he has now with Ellie.
I'm gonna just throw something out there with this, and that is that in the first episode, what you said I think was right on, right? Beat by beat, the first episode really tried to mimic the opening scenes of the game. And that I think was not just awesome, but it was necessary to set the tone of the game, because as we go on, I mean the show, because as we go on, it does start to veer a little bit further away, and we need that sort of grounded in reality aspect of, hey, this is where we came from. um so much so that as I was watching the first episode, one of the things that I noticed was even the voices that sort of felt disembodied and seemed to come off camera, so to speak, that they do in the game, where you're like, you hear things coming, into the game itself, but like from a place clearly that isn't right next to you, because the sound is a little bit off, it sounds distant, it sounds a little bit tinny. They even recreated that in the show, and that was amazing to me. It really felt immersive. um so once we have Joel lose Sarah, and that is absolutely traumatic, we realize that the world, taking a time jump, has clearly changed in pretty terrible ways. And moving in a direction forward, Joel has met Tess. There is this organization called Fedra, and there is another organization called the Fireflies. But let's just pause very briefly and talk about um, well, let's talk about first what is Fedra. Um, I'm gonna go back to Josh on this and ask Josh to give us sort of a, what do you understand Fedra is, and how is that important?
Well, Fedra is it's essentially the government and how they're taking care of the people in a way, trying to keep everybody quarantined and quote unquote safe.
Mm.
It all really comes down to keep everybody under lock and key, uh, under the guise of safety, which is why there is a group to counter them in the first place. It really is an interesting conversation about you know how much are you willing to kind of give up in the name of safety as far as freedoms and liberties. That's what is been happening, and it's difficult to kind of contain everything to just what we've seen in the first episode so far, or early goings on in the game. What we really know at this point in the first episode, right after the time jump, is that they're there to keep everybody sort of in line and more or less kind of fed like it's some sort of big old summer camp where everybody's just miserable, like summer camp. Um, but yeah, that's them. That's the government in action.
So, FEDRA stands for the Federal Disaster Response Agency. And the Federal Disaster Response Agency works pretty closely with what they still have as the basic CDC, and kind of like a morphed Department of Homeland Security. It is absolutely authoritarian. There is a clear regime set up to kind of control people and keep them within certain quarantine zones. And this is done, they say, basically to keep infection from spreading. And we see a pretty early example of that with a child that comes in, and again, this is going to dovetail into what happens with Ellie, but we see a child comes in that has been bit, and they kill the child, saying something along the lines of, you're going to have lots of toys to play with, everything's going to be great. And no, it clearly is not great. They take no chances, zero chances. Like, if it even appears that you have been bit, or if it appears that you have even been compromised, you're not going to survive. They don't allow you to live, because that's how incredibly infective everything is. It is so fast the way that this stuff moves that they just take zero chances. And so when we finally meet Ellie, we realize that, oh, okay, this is something special because Ellie has the scar from being bit. But before we get there, I wanted to ask Kinte. Kinte, what did you think of the fireflies in episode 1? How did you feel about, kind of having this clear rebel kind of people out there, and what did you think initially their purpose was?
I figured they were, some sort of militant organization trying to figure out what, trying to navigate through the terrain of the new world. They were what I thought they were, and it's still unclear exactly everything about them because we only seen a little of them. So it's kind of hard to say. Even going fast forward into episode 4, it's still there's still you know there's still kind of you don't know exactly everything about them, but um I like the integration of them, and I like that they have a purpose, that it's not just trying to exist, that they're actually trying to do something to solve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you've played the game, there's a lot about the Fireflies that you know, and some things, may not be the best. But I think in episode 1, they try to portray the Fireflies as being the sort of like freedom fighters, the resistance, the people that are trying to do something that fight against Fedra because Fedra is not doing the right things according to them. But where the Fireflies really come into play is this idea of getting Ellie out of the city and getting her out to another Fireflies base. And that's where we have Joel and Tess, who have been, according to everything that has been happening so far in episode 1, living inside of Boston, making deals, trying to do some things. Now, importantly, in episode 1, Joel has lost touch with Tommy, and Tommy has gone far out to Wyoming, because he's lost touch with him, and because he is, well, I mean, I'll say that he's worried about him because obviously that clearly is what's going on. Um, he's trying to gather together the resources to get a battery for a truck. This is proving to be very difficult, and eventually, this is what causes Joel and Tess to meet up with, uh, well, it's what causes Joel and Tess to meet up with the Fireflies. Okay, so let's pick up from there, and we meet Ellie. Um, I do want to touch on Joel and Tess, but I think maybe we'll do that in the next episode and really kind of concentrate on what their relationship is, because we might have a little bit more time there. But let's get to Ellie. And what was your initial reaction, Tori, to meeting Ellie? What did you think about her?
Mm, I think the graphics in this game are just so awesome. So every time I see like a scene of her or Joel or anybody, I I'm wondered. Oh my gosh, it's so realistic, right? And then I like Ellie. I I kind of thought she was gonna die. Like I thought she was gonna be a goner, but she wasn't. So
It
yeah,
does kind of seem like all the kids in The Last of Us don't fare very well.
yeah,
They definitely
that's.
have, they have a tough time. They have a very tough time.
You thought they were gonna kill another kid? What kind of show you think this is, Tori?
Hey,
It's Game of
hey,
Thrones for kids.
yes,
Um,
yes,
Josh, what did you
exactly.
think of Ellie?
The character or the portrayal?
The portrayal, the episode 1 portrayal of Ellie,
Oh, I thought it was absolutely spot on.
right?
She's got a mouth on her, doesn't she?
Yep. And
And
Kinte,
it's not far off from the way kids actually act today.
it's absolutely true. And Kinte, what did you think about Ellie when you first met her?
I'll be honest with you. She's grown on me. I didn't like her at first. I don't like smart aleck kids.
I,
I always want to smack their mouths when they smart aleck kids. So
I,
yeah, I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I didn't care for her at first, and she was kind of annoying to me. And then, but then as it went on, she grows on you like a fungus. Ha ha ha.
so I think that this is very intentional, right? We're not really supposed to like, quote unquote, most of the characters. Joel isn't even very likable at this point. He's very hardened, very jaded, very. He's just like been lost to this idea that if violence has to beget more violence to get to your goal, then it's okay. Like, he has kind of lost a little bit of his humanity, and I don't feel like we're supposed to really like Ellie in the beginning, and that's for a purpose. And I think that this unfolds as we go episodically through the relationship of who Joel is and who Ellie are, and then who the pair of them are together. But let's not forget Tess. For
I,
as the short time that Tess is available to us on the screen, this is an amazing portrayal of who she is. It to me, it opened up a brand new world of sort of depth. I really, really liked it. And we're going to get into sort of what happens inside of episode 2 in a second, but this whole process of dealing with what happens with Tess meant so much more to me because of who she was. So I'm going to try to close this particular part out by saying um, I think that in some ways the episode 1 and then into episode 2, we sort of have a full picture, as full as we can get, of where Joel is from, where Tess is from, what they're doing, what their core mission is, which is to get the battery so that he can go out west and get to Tommy. And we're introduced to the cordyceps in episode 2. Well, technically at the end of episode 1 with the clicker on the roof, but we're introduced to them with a little bit of lore in episode 2. And I wanted to get, first of all, I want to get Kinte's opinion about what you thought of them when you first saw them, and so we see them in episode 1 because obviously that's when the apocalypse happens. But as things have gone forward, we get to see them outside the walls of Boston in episode 2, and up close and personal in that jaunt through the museum. And before I forget to say this, it is so clear to me that HBO has invested so much money into this series to make it as rich and grand as it is. And it shows in the little things, and the museum and that flooded area are prime examples. The amount of detail and effort that went in to recreate those, to make them feel like they came directly from the game, and then to spend less than 10 minutes in them, is enormous when it comes to resources for building these. It's just absolutely fabulous. And so I need to give them a huge shout out, because that is one of the things that I am the most impressed with. I'll get to some things that I'm not so happy with in a bit, but let's talk real quick about the cordyceps and what you thought of them. Kinte, what did you think in episode
I want to
2 of
make a
them?
quick thing about Joel because you were saying about him not being likable.
Yeah.
And I know this is later on in a future episode, but how can you not like a guy who eats 20-year-old
Chef
ravioli?
Boyardee.
Right,
Yeah, he was a good guy, wasn't he? Yeah.
right, right. Uh, I wouldn't eat ravioli that was made yesterday, but I digress. But
But you're
anyway,
not living in you're not living in the cordyceps
right,
apocalypse, so yeah.
right. I feel like
Okay,
Josh
so
would eat it, but I think he would eat it now. But anyway, no. Okay, so one disadvantage that this show has, but it's done a great job of surpassing it, is I'll give you a great example. There was a show called ER, and it was like a hospital show, and it ran for I think 10, 11 years. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then other shows came up afterwards or like near the end, like you had the one on ABC, Grey's Anatomy, and then you had House and some other shows. And if you've watched ER for all that time, I'm gonna bring it all together. Uh, you watched every single doctor situation you could watch, right? And so I didn't watch those other shows, even though other people did watch those other shows, because I felt like I've seen every doctor show. Why would I need to watch another one, right? Well, and this show has a disadvantage in that we just watched Walking Dead for what, 10 years or whatever, how long? And we've
Hmm.
seen every zombie configuration you could see, right, on that show, right? So this show has done a great job because one thing I felt like going into it is, okay, here we go with the zombies, because they're not thrilling characters, right? But
Right.
they've done such a great job of when you see them on the show, it's impactful. So they haven't overdone it, right? And when they are on the show, like they make an impact. And I've, not playing the game, to me, I think that first of all, they're ugly, they're creepy looking, and they do a great job. The way and they move that gives you an intensity that in other stuff that you don't really have in a lot of other programs. So I think they've done a great job, and the production design on this show is fantastic.
Right.
Oh man, I mean, you could see it on the screen. I mean, it's beautiful, and they've done such a great job. So I think that they've done a great job, and honestly, I don't need a whole lot of them because, like I said, I've just watched The Walking Dead for 20 years. I don't need a whole lot of zombie action. I want a great story, and then the zombies, be more impactful. That's me, but there's probably people out there. I want a more zombie action.
This is I think one of the key aspects of differences between The Last of Us and The Walking Dead. And we can have that discussion another time when we've got more sort of time for the episodes. But I will say that one of the things that I think that they do really well in the first and the second episode, and even into the third and fourth episode, is that they continue the sense of dread, the horror thematic content, the overall tone of everything is scary without needing to hit us over the head with it. Um and in the game, it obviously the stakes feel a little bit higher because you can die in the game, so you're, trying to protect all of your assets and you don't want to die. But there is a portion, I think, of the game that also is sort of very similar to the series in that we don't have monsters where they don't make sense. Like we don't just have kind of roaming monsters in a way that doesn't make sense. And so the dread kind of builds
You
instead of
mean
is always present.
you mean like you don't have no whale walkers?
Yeah, oh my god. Okay, well, we will definitely be having that conversation because I would love to do a whole podcast on The Walking Dead versus The Last of Us. So we'll definitely do that. Okay, so Josh, let me get your opinion on the cordyceps too, because if you, not if you, because you've played the game, I really would like to know how you feel about it.
Wait, one thing real quick.
Yeah,
I think we only should do the first season of both. That'd be the fairest thing to do.
yeah. Okay, we'll compare the first season of The Walking Dead and The Last of Us. That would make sense. All right, so Josh, give us your take on the cordyceps.
Well, I think Kinte pretty much nailed everything. The only thing that I can really say differently, and not even differently, but maybe just in addition to, as far as comparing it to the games, in the series, from what we've seen so far, it's been very dramatic. It's been, as Kinte put, very impactful and um, pretty intense, just from the couple types that we've seen on screen so far. But knowing what's coming, uh, I can only imagine the bricks people are going to be dropping in their pants when they see what's to come.
Oh my god, no kidding.
It's going to be, oh, it's going to be something else.
in fact, not to give any, because I don't know when people will listen to this, but if you're listening to this in real time, the episode that's coming up on Friday, which will be episode 5, is apparently, if you've seen the trailer, it's gonna be big. And the the cordyceps type that we are about to see is honestly, to me, one of the most scary from the game. It just absolutely is frightening beyond
Oh, I'm
belief
I'm
for
not watching that episode then. I don't want to be scared. I
it's
don't want to be
really
scared. I don't want to be
scary.
I
scared.
mean, just to put it simply, video games have boss fights.
Right,
This is a show based on a video game.
right.
Yep.
Boss battles, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
all I'm
so
gonna say.
things definitely ramp up because your skill level in the game does matter in terms of what you can fight as you kind of continue to go along. So as we move along in the series, yeah, things definitely feel like they are progressively going to
If
ramp up. I
if I
hope that
can't
that's the
sleep
case.
because of the Friday's episode, we, Josh and Jen has to pitch in and get me a, nightlight.
Okay, we promise we will, and we promise it won't be in the shape of a cordyceps either. We'll get you a nice mushroom light so you can see. Okay, I want to talk real quick about Joel and Tess and how Tess dies. Um, yeah, that's not a spoiler. Sorry, guys. Uh, we're going all the way through episode 1 and 2, so if you don't know, yeah, I already gave you a warning. I definitely want to talk about the sacrifice that Tess makes for Joel and her ask of Joel, and why I feel like that is not just the sort of pivot point in the game to get Joel to do what he needs to do, but also kind of gives us a preview of some things to come. And I guess I'm going to ask Kinte first. Kinte, what did you feel about the way that Tess died, and her final sort of ask of Joel, which, by the way, was to
Man,
get
that,
Ellie.
once again, another great moment where I'm thinking she's part of the show. I'm thinking she's a main part of the show, and then when she dies, I'm like, oh shit, like who, oh,
Right.
it's about him and the girl. Like I didn't know it was about him and the girl. So I thought it was great. And I thought that the ask, you know, was awesome. And she was pretty uh she was pretty bossy, that chick. Because I remember when she was being interrogated, she was like, he's gonna do what I tell him to do. I was like, gee. I was like, wow, okay, Dominique Crick. But yeah, no, I thought, great character. It really surprised me that when she died. I don't know, was it surprising in the game when she died for you guys?
I, well, I can say that I feel like it was a pivotal moment. In that, yeah. What's a good way to say this? So, The Last of Us is all built from core to every point outward on understanding and processing grief, morality, and choices. And for Tess to do what she did is kind of like foreshadowing to a whole lot of the rest of the game. You have a choice, you have a morality, you have sort of a sense of what your duty and purpose is. And honestly, I Tess knew things that I feel like weren't really conveyed to Joel, but I feel like Tess understood them. Like, this is the big moment for us to make things better, and she alludes to that in the during the episode 2 series when she says, look, here's a chance for us to make things right. We don't know what it was that at this point in the series that sort of made her think that, but it's obviously really big. And redemption, I think, is, this is one of those things where we don't always understand when we're seeing redemption in the moment. And yet here we get a peek at, hey, here's your chance at redemption, and it's kind of straightforward. So I'm going to ask Josh the same question. Josh, what did you think of the test scene where Tess basically gives up her own life to save them.
It
And it's a little
well,
bit different than in the game.
yeah,
What happens here?
in the game, she's not killed by the infected.
Right,
She's killed by Fedra,
right,
and they finally catch their big um, big baddie, I guess, because if anything, playing these games, you get a good look at how good guys and bad guys are basically just uh, comes down to what side you're on. And in the end, there are no good guys and there are no bad guys. They're just people that want to do what they have to do to survive. And in the series, she thinks that Ellie is the key to not necessarily erasing all of the horrible things that she and Joel have done to survive, but at the very least, make it seem like it meant something.
right.
And it's one of those cases where, yeah, she knew what her fate was already, and if she could use her last her last breath to ultimately save humanity, then it would all be worth it. Like Kinte said, going back to the interrogation scene, Tess is an amazing badass woman.
Right.
She's making her captors apologize for beating her up, and that says so much about who she is as a person and how strong she is, how strong her will is, and her reputation. So for her to make that sacrifice just for a chance at making things better says a lot about her character. And it again, it's goes to show that they're not pulling any punches for the series. They are going to hit you hard in the fields. They're going to make you care about somebody, and then they're going to take them away.
Yep. Yep. This and they do this I think really effectively throughout the game too, where you don't know who to trust. I mean, you're on an adventure is not the right word. You are on this journey with Joel and Ellie, but you have zero idea who you meet along the way that either has the same sort of morality bent that you do, or the same or even if the choices that you've made so far are going to change some people throughout the game. Now, in the series, clearly the way that they sort of put this all together is with Tess giving up her life to save Joel and Ellie so that they can get away, right? And they do it with the amount of flammable fluid.
Mhm.
And if you look really closely, the lighter that Tess uses is apparently a prop lighter from Uncharted. So big shout out to Neil Druckmann, who is my hero in all of this because he also did Uncharted. So he did The Last of Us and he did Uncharted.
And
Um,
and
Can I
and
throw
Joel
something
kind
out
of
there real
does
quick?
look. Joel looks like he's related to Drake.
yeah, he does kind of look like he's related to Nathan Drake, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Josh?
I do just kind of want to put this out there that you know, rest in peace, Annie Wershing, the actress that played Tess in the game,
Yeah.
recently passed away a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. She was in 24. Yeah.
Did a great job. I
How did
mean,
she
Yeah.
pass
absolutely amazing.
away? How did she pass away?
Not mistaken, it was cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It
that's
was.
so sad. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. It was a
Bless
long
their
battle.
hearts. Oh.
Um. So, as we move sort of like forward into the okay, Joel has now lost Tess, and I want to talk real briefly about that scene that happens outside of the museum when the big explosion happens, right? And it it to me this is sort of pivotal because again this sort of sets us up on the stage where I think there's so much foreshadowing in all of this. Joel sees it, and obviously he's not just heartbroken, but, clearly there's grief there. But at the same time, Ellie is overwhelmed by what is happening, and Joel is like, okay, experience the grief real quick, move on, survive. Ellie is not there yet. She's just not there yet. But I think you get a really clear picture that Joel has lost so much that even the loss of Tess doesn't slow him down for even a single second, because his secondary drive of survival, or maybe it's his primary drive of survival, kicks in, and he continues on without really even missing a beat. In fact, we don't even really talk about Tess until episode 3 toward the end, again with any real, even a little bit of emotion. So I actually really liked that. I thought that that was a really, good way of showing how incredibly jaded Joel is, in terms of hardened he is from grief and from everything that he has already survived. I also want to say that, as we move forward, I know that this has been really super condensed, and I am so sorry that we don't have a ton more time to go more in depth with this, but in our next episodes we are going to slow everything down and really kind of give a wider birth to everything, so that we can really get into it. There were things about the interrogation, like Josh said, that I really wanted to talk about. I really wanted to talk about the radio, which we'll actually, I guess, talk about when we can talk season, or sorry, episode 3. And to close this out, though, I want to really discuss why grief and loss are so important here. So in episode 1 and episode 2, we sort of get a sneak peek at what grief and loss matter to all of our characters. And right now we're down to Ellie and Joel. They've both lost a lot. They both have very little to even begin moving forward with. And this sort of sets up, I think, the rest of the series, because this is what they have to work on for their foundation. So I wanted to get, I'll start with Tori. Tori, what is your how did you feel about how much Joel and Ellie have already lost, and what you think that might mean going forward?
Okay, so grief is so overwhelming, like so overwhelming. When you lose somebody and you go through the 5 stages, it consumes you. And I think they did a good job of portraying that in the characters. Joel is very jaded. I think that's a great word for him, because he gives things a chance, but he still gets hurt whenever. I want to say one thing about the production thing. Like I really thought that I was in the video game. Like, I've watched the video game. I've never played it. And I think that they took all the different avenues that people could take in the game and really condensed them in the show. And they did that with Ellie, and they did that with Joel, because there was, you know, how do you portray such grief as somebody that we've never been in this situation before, right? So, you know, I don't know. I don't know how I would handle it. I'd probably freak out.
So
That's just me.
So I'm going to ask Kinte and Josh to give me their opinions also about what they think in that realm. And I also just want to shout out real quick to Stephanie. Stephanie, if you don't like zombie movies or shows, yeah, you should definitely stick around for The Last of Us, because it's really not like a typical zombie show. So yeah, come along for the ride with us. Kinte, what did you think about just that last sort of scene with, okay, Tess has given up her life, and then Joel and Ellie have to move on. That overall sense of grief and loss as it sort of applies to the two of them.
I mean, I thought it was excellent. I thought it was it really established the characters, and it, it deepens the relationship that we have as an audience with the characters. And I thought that that was very important for to do that, especially early on in a series. So I thought they did an excellent job with that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. What about you, Josh?
Well, seeing that within the first couple of episodes, Joel just keeps losing the people that are closest to him in the world, and he doesn't keep that list very filled. You know, it's like every time he puts a name on it, it's it's gone. So it's it's good to see that they're able to show his reluctance to not just accept Ellie as sort of a job, because it's not his mission. He doesn't. It's not that he doesn't care. He just doesn't.
Right.
That's not why he's going. He wants to find his brother. But for Tess, he's taking Ellie to where she needs to go, because Tess believes that this is the answer, that this is the key. And because Tess is no longer there, it sort of builds another wall for Joel. And as we see, moving forward, yeah, there's going to be some crumbling to that wall as he and Ellie get closer, as people tend to do in crisis situations. I seem to recall this little film called Speed. Maybe you've heard of it.
Yes,
Yeah, people.
pop quiz,
Loved it.
pop quiz, asshole.
No, is it pop quiz hot shot? Pop
No,
quiz hot shot.
no, I said asshole. I changed it.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god.
And Stephanie's right. Joel is, he's afraid to be vulnerable because, again, everybody he's vulnerable to winds up dead.
It's
Well,
it,
I
it,
think. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you only allow so many people into that, you're yes, I'm going to care about you. And when you are only willing to care about a very small circle of people, then anyone that is in that circle that disappears, dies, or, suffers some kind of demise, it's going to hit you even harder than it does. It's just it's there is so much pent up in all of this, and it makes Joel's search for Tommy also, I think, on a different level. Like, it's not, yes, he is absolutely fulfilling Tessa's last wish, right, which is a very powerful statement in and of itself. It was her dying wish, get Ellie where she needs to go. But the
Yeah.
tandem problem here is that Joel needs to get to his brother, and that matters too. So, and it definitely matters in the game, but in the series you can see that the two elements here that are running along parallel lines will definitely convene at some point, but or converge. But what matters here is that Joel's motivation is primarily being driven
Um,
by both his grief for Tess and his promise to her, and his want to get out to his brother. So it just so happens that the two kind of work. And when he says that Ellie, okay, he's willing to do this by the end of episode 2, it really does kind of feel to me, at least, that that yes, he this is his intent, but also we have this other sort of, yeah, okay, fine, I'll get you where you need to go because I did care about Tess so much, because I did make her that promise. Yeah, as we kind of close out this episode
yeah, I
here,
think this is a good place to end because
yeah,
we don't want to
we're gonna
lose
do that.
Joel. I mean Joel. We don't want to lose
No, we
Josh.
don't want to
So,
lose Josh. Yeah,
so how
we're
about we
gonna.
just let's just how about we just and then we could just roll it over for the next one.
Mm,
Because we only have Josh for so very
Yeah,
short.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. I want to thank you all for joining us. That's what I was about to say. I want to thank you all for joining us for this very special premiere episode of Talking the Last of Us. I hope you will join us for our next episode when we are going to really dive into episode 3 of The Last of Us, which deals with Frank and Bill and the amazing story that we got out of that. That was not part of the game, but let me tell you, it was pretty phenomenal. So if you can join us for that, please do. I'm
In a
Jen.
few minutes, by the way, we're gonna close this out and then we're gonna start another one. So anyone that's listening can listen.
Right. I'm Jen. I'm joined by Tori, Kinte, and Josh. And do you guys want to tell everybody how to find you on social
Um,
media real quick?
yeah, let's do it real quick.
Okay, go ahead. Go, Kinte.
Kinte F on Twitter, Kinte Ferguson on Instagram.
All right, Josh.
Go to wadcomedia.com for all the appropriate links and where to find out all about the other awesome podcasts that I do, especially with our wonderful host, Jen.
Lots of fun there. And Tori, how can we find you on social media?
Oh yeah, my you can find me on Facebook, Tori Rush. I'm the first one that pops up every time. And then you can also find me on my own show, but it's in hiatus, so I can't really talk about it. And yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Rush Tori.
Rush
Awesome.
Story.
All right. we'll see. We'll see you all next time for the next episode of Talking the Last of Us. Thank you so much for joining us.